Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us this evening or this afternoon or this morning from wherever you're joining us from. We're so happy to have you join us for this webinar on social sciences faculty panel, where you'll get a lot of opportunities to ask questions that you might have about the programs we have. Before we begin, I'd like to acknowledge that the land that St. Thomas is situated on is the traditional territory of the Wolastoqiyik, Maliseet Hussain, along with their ancestors, the Mi'kmaq, and Passamaquoddy tribes, peace and friendship treaties in the 1700s. So we'd like to acknowledge that, and we'll get started. So just a little bit about myself. My name is Mochaneta. I'm an admissions counselor here at St. Thomas University, but I'm also a recent graduate, graduating in 2022 with a double major in human rights and criminology and criminal justice. And I came to St. Thomas as an international student from South Africa. Just a little bit about today's information session. You might have noticed that your camera and your microphone is off, but you'll still be able to interact with our lovely professors joining us today by sending in your questions through the Q&A section, Q&A box that is located at the either bottom or the top of your screen, where you'll be able to have your questions answered. And if you're also looking for I will also provide you with my email at the end, where you can also send any questions that you might have. So yeah, so today's overview, like I mentioned, we're gonna have basically be talking about social sciences. So the programs offered here at St. Thomas University, and you're gonna get to hear from our professors, hear about the courses that they teach and all the amazing initiatives that they're involved in here at St. Thomas. And then we'll have a Q&A session where you'll be able to ask them questions directly. So with that, I will pass it on to Dr. Bateman to tell you a little bit more about the political science department.
Very good. Thank you, Mucha. My name is Tom Bateman. I'm the chair of political science. And you may be wondering about some of the following questions. For example, why did Russia invade Ukraine around last year at this time? Why is the world divided on the legitimacy of this invasion? Or another question, why do parties like the NDP in Canada get so few seats in the House of Commons, even though they garner between 17 and 20% of the popular vote in most elections? Why is immigration policy such a big deal in European and North American politics right now? Why do some countries become and stay democratic while others fail and become and remain authoritarian? Why have China, South Korea, Singapore, and others risen so spectacularly in their political and economic performance since the Second World War? And are countries like Canada with subnational groups like Quebec and the First Nations inherently unstable? Or are countries like Canada the model for the future of governance around the world? This is just a small sample of the kinds of questions that political scientists consider and that political science students learn about. At STU, our department covers the 4 big subfields of political science: Canadian government and politics, comparative government, international relations, and the history of political philosophy. We also have a variety of experiential opportunities like Model UN, and also a legislative internship program at the New Brunswick Legislature. Graduates from our program have gone into law and to government and government relations and law enforcement and journalism, many great possibilities. So that is the political science department and the political science program. Now, I think I am asked to continue right on to the law, politics, and society program. So let me just say a couple of words about that. Here are other questions that you might have. Who goes to prison in Canada? How do you become a judge? What sorts of cases make it to the Supreme Court of Canada? Who is likely to be charged with a criminal offense? How are decisions about prosecution of charges actually made? What is the difference between constitutional, criminal, and civil law? What are history's most famous and influential trials? Here's a question with a real local flavor. Many years ago, we had a gentleman accused of killing his father, Dennis Oland, and one of the more celebrated murder trials in recent Canadian history. He was convicted by a jury at the first instance. Then he was acquitted by a judge alone trial several years later. And was he wrongfully acquitted? A big question that remains to this day. So these are the kinds of questions that students in law, politics, and society will consider. LAPS is an interdisciplinary program at St. Thomas University, which means that students can get a major or a minor by taking certain courses from a variety of disciplines, and they all add up to a degree in law, politics, and society. And it's been going at this university since about 2019, very successful. Students have moved on to law school and to government work, social work, education, law enforcement. So that's another option for you to consider. I'll leave it at that for now. Thank you.
Hello, I'm Sean Narayan. I'm a professor of political science at St. Thomas as well, and I'm Dr. Bateman's colleague in the same department, political science. I'm also the head of the International Relations Program, and I'll give you a very brief overview of what the International Relations Program is about. It's housed in political science, and so most of our the foundation of the program is within political science. And if you look at the calendar, you'll see that most of the courses that are recommended for the program come out of the political science field. However, it's also an interdisciplinary program, and it's meant to draw on the considerable expertise that St. Thomas has in terms of the entire faculty, in terms of the entire social science faculty. So, for example, in international relations, you can also take advanced courses in history, economics, even English, sociology, criminology, as long as they have a component that can fit into the international relations area, ambit. And the idea here is to, as I said, draw on the considerable talent and research that the university has, because we have many different professors who are doing work that connects in some way to the global field. So this is a way to draw all of their expertise together and create a very broad-based and wide-ranging sort of education for students who might be interested in international relations. Some of the courses that we teach in international relations and political science include things like Canadian foreign policy, American foreign policy. This coming year, I'm going to be teaching a course on the reemergence of China. My area of specialization is the international relations of the Asia Pacific, and I teach a course on that. We also teach courses on international relations theory and international political economy, for example. We have a Model United Nations senior course, a course for credit that students can take more than once if they need to, if they want to, because it's actually quite an enjoyable course. And that brings in students from the second all the way up to some cases to the fourth year. And what we usually do is go to a Harvard Model United Nations in February of a given year, though this coming year we're actually planning to go to New York City and take part in a UN that takes place within the Model UN that takes place within the actual United Nations building. And I think that's probably all that I should say right now.
Yes, is it my turn? I forgot. I'm Dev Gupta, Chair of Economics Department. Economics is a very interesting subject as it relates to all the things that we look for in life, whether we are a business person or whether we are a consumer or a household. Businesses people have to decide what to produce, how to produce, for whom to produce. Consumers have to decide what to consume, where to work, and Governments have to conduct the policies to make sure that inequalities are corrected to some extent and everyone is happy. So, and we look at some macro issues, lots of macro issues like inflation, why there is inflation, why there is unemployment, why exchange rate, Canadian exchange rate is going so low. So all these questions, they are covered from a variety of perspectives in our department. It's a very rich program. It has both a mainstream perspective as well as political economy perspective. So we have courses like in political economy, environment, economics of gender, art and science of happiness, business courses, as well as we are planning to have some social and entrepreneurial dimension and some courses in that area. The program provides several options. You can specialize in mainstream economics with an honors degree and go on to graduate school, or you can specialize with political economy perspective and also get an honors degree. Then we have also major in economics and a major in economics with business option and also a minor in economics. So we have lots of, we tackle our economics questions from a lots of perspectives. Basically, economics also teaches critical thinking skills because it's some places it's called a science, other places called art. So it has very logical thinking, theoretical, particularly questions. So, and there is lots of problem solving questions. So we try to educate in all these spheres depending on your interest. And I will leave it for now because my time is up and we'll wait for your questions.
Hi, everyone. My name is Janice Harvey, and I am an assistant professor and coordinator for Environment and Society. And this is a program that you can do a major or a minor, and you can also do an honors through the interdisciplinary program in Environment and Society. So you probably remember this, you may remember this, in 2019, 16-year-old Swedish student Greta Thunberg went on school strike to get her government, to take stronger action on climate change. That sparked a worldwide youth climate movement. And Greta ended up at the United Nations speaking to world leaders there she said, I want you to act like your house is on fire, because it is. And she, of course, was referring to global warming and changes in the climate that is causing. So more than anything else, climate change is going to shape all of our lives over the coming years, yours and mine. And everything that we now take as normal is going to have to change. So the way we get and use energy, where we live, where our food comes from, how we move around, what we buy, how we make a living, how we spend our free time, all of that is going to change in order to avoid climate chaos. And it's a scary time, but it's also an exciting time. We need to imagine a social world that is in balance with the natural world. And then we need to build that social world. So this is what the Environment Society is about broadly. It's an interdisciplinary program in the social sciences. It is not a science program. I need to stress that, a natural science program. It is also interdisciplinary. It's about our society, learning about our society and why society produces environmental problems, but also how we can act to address them. And we have a new initiative that's going to be developed over the next year. It'll be available in a couple of years now, while you're still at STU, called the Sustainability Transitions Teaching Lab. And there'll be more to say about that a bit later. But I just invite you to give us a look. And I look forward to your questions.
Hi, Dr. Dallas. I think you're muted.
Okay, again, okay. Hi, my name is Csilla Dalos, and I'm the chair of the Department of Anthropology at St. Thomas University. So anthropology is usually a less known discipline. It's defined as the science of humans, and you may be curious what's the difference between anthropology and other disciplines that also deal with humans. And so perhaps the most important thing is that anthropology is in between. It's a science, a social science, but it's also a humanity. And it has 4 subdisciplines: biological anthropology, cultural anthropology, linguistic anthropology, and archaeology. Students in our department can take courses in biological anthropology, cultural anthropology, and archaeology. So 3 of these 4 subdisciplines. So anthropology is a holistic discipline, and sometimes it may seem very general, but actually I like to think of it as, instead of focusing on special corners of human experience as other social sciences do. For instance, political science focuses on political life, economics on economy, psychology on psychology. Anthropology focuses on the relationships between these areas of human life. And as such, anthropology pairs excellently with any other discipline. Of course, we have a wonderful forensic anthropology minor that pairs very well with either psychology or criminology, and this forensic minor is very, very popular among students. But apart from this, anthropology also makes an excellent double major. Whether you want to be a teacher, a banker, or a business person, cultural competence is really important in this day and age, when half of our large cities' populations were born outside of Canada. This double major in anthropology, this cultural expertise gives you an edge compared to anybody else who doesn't have this this knowledge and this cultural competence. So we have plenty of hands-on courses in our program. Of course, forensic anthropology courses involve plenty of opportunities to do hands-on research, especially in our human skeletal biology course, forensic osteology and archaeology courses. We have applied forensic anthropology. We have a wonderful lab where students spend a lot of time, they like to, sometimes they stay even for the night. And so we have a wonderful life in our lab. And we also have opportunities to have within forensic anthropology and biological anthropology, we have this demography project that is very unique, and it's a large-scale undertaking. And students usually collect and analyze a wide range of primary data. And this data pertains to genetics, adaptation, nutrition, and so students are putting together this data, and that's a very popular course. And we have excellent ethnographic area courses in South America, in Southeast Asia, North America, Australia, and so forth. We have ethnomusicology courses. Like anthropology basically pairs with everything. We have psychological anthropology courses, and I hope I see you in many of our courses. Thank you.
All right, so my name is Dr. Sandra Thompson. I'm chair of the psychology department at STU. And if you're interested in learning more about how people act, think, and feel, you might want to consider taking some courses in psychology. Psychology is the scientific study of mind and behavior. It's a fascinating field that can help you better understand the people around you and even better understand yourself and your own thought patterns and your own behaviors. Faculty in the Department of Psychology have diverse areas of expertise and can help you discover answers to questions you have about how we perceive things, people's motivations, their personality traits, relationships, and why we behave the way we do in certain situations. You'll tackle questions in your courses like, why can I remember all of this useless information, but I can't remember where I just put my phone, or I can't remember the answer to that test question that I just studied the night before. Or when it comes to relationships, do opposites really attract? What developmental milestones do children hit between infancy and adolescence? And at what point should we expect them to be hitting those milestones? In some of our perception classes, you might look at questions like, does the way I see blue match the way that you see blue? And how does the brain process color and sound? Why is peer pressure such a powerful influence on our behavior? How do we diagnose and treat various mental health issues like anxiety and depression? Psychology students at STU develop critical thinking skills, research skills, and communication skills that can prepare them for a wide variety of careers. Some of our graduates go on to become psychologists, but I would say a lot of them go on to pursue work in other areas of human services, like all kinds of some mental health related fields, physical health related fields, education, social work, law. Psychology can prepare you for a number of different careers. And while you're taking courses here, you will notice overlap with a lot of other areas within the university, whether it be criminology, anthropology, gerontology, sociology. So there's a lot of interesting ways that you can connect your learning across those various disciplines. I'll leave it at that for now, but I'm happy to answer any questions you have about our program.
Thanks, Sandra. My name is Christy Elaine, and I'm an associate professor of sociology and a research chair in our department. And I like to think about sociology as a superpower. And what I mean by this is that to do sociology is like possessing a set of invisibility goggles that, instead of rendering you invisible, help you see the invisible operations of power that are going on all around you. So we call this the sociological imagination, and using the sociological imagination allows you to see the ways that certain kinds of people, wealthy people perhaps, and structures like capitalism benefit from the way society is organized. You can see why things operate the way they do and have a deeper understanding of who benefits from these kinds of social organizations. Once you harness this superpower, you're well positioned to not only ask critical questions about social organization and structures and systems, but you're also really well positioned to demand that things be different than the way they are. And so in this regard, we like to think that sociology is a discipline that works to change the world. Our students have gone on to graduate school. Some, as like Sanders, have become sociologists, but many have become teachers, lawyers, social workers. They work in the public sector for the government of New Brunswick, for the federal government. They become policy analysts, consultants. They work in the not-for-profit sector. They work as journalists and in health professions. And I welcome any questions you have about our program. Thank you.
Thank you all so much. So we'll actually now head straight into the Q&A session for tonight. So folks, if you're joining us and you have any questions, please feel free to put that in the Q&A box as I had mentioned earlier, and I will be able to pose those questions to our professors. But I guess to start off with, the first question that we received was, can I take first year classes in several of these subjects? And I'm happy to take this one. And I think, some of the professors here already, answered it in terms of like how the programs that we have are interdisciplinary. But also I think it's very much encouraged that you try out all of these courses if you can, just to kind of figure out like what you're interested in. It's okay if you don't know what you're interested in. In fact, a lot of students come in at STU not knowing what they want to study, which is perfectly normal. So being able to take all these different courses will actually allow you actually discover, courses that you like, or even discover courses that you didn't think you'd like, but end up liking. So yes to that question. So my next question is for Dr. Harvey. So someone is asking if they can take environmental, if they can take classes in environment, even if they think of majoring in sociology and psychology.
Yes, the short answer, yes. You can take courses in any department that without having to choose that subject as a major or a minor. The Environment and Society program is a double major though, and so you can choose to study that and another discipline, and there are many, like any of the ones that you've heard of tonight would be a nice partner for Environment and Society, because environment is sort of integrally related to all parts of our lives and all aspects of our world. So yeah, that's now I would also say that in completing your degree, you require some credits in different groups of subjects, and in groups C and D, you're going to require some credits, and the Environment Society courses are in group C, and so a lot of students will take them in order to complete their BA requirements.
Yeah, perfect. Thank you so much. The next question that we have is for Dr. Dallas. So someone is wondering if there is internship opportunities or really just hands-on experiential learning through the anthropology program.
Well, in our anthropology, fourth year anthropology, forensic anthropology course, actually there is a group project where students work with Professor Maura McLaughlin on an open RCMP forensic file. So that's the closest we come to an internship, but we don't really have currently an internship program in anthropology.
Perfect. Yeah, so the next question is for Dr. Elaine. So I guess in terms of sociology and psychology, there's definitely a lot of, cross-listing and overlapping, but could you, I guess, talk to students a little bit more about how they actually work together, if they do, and if someone, should consider or can consider to double major in both?
I think for our students, a joint major in psychology is probably the most common joint major that I see. So yes, they do work well together. We have very different perspectives on the world and on the social world, but we share methods. And I think we'd share methods with many of the people on the panel tonight. But I think I, for instance, my undergraduate degree is in Indigenous Studies and Psychology, and then I moved to Sociology for my graduate work. It's not uncommon to see students take courses in both. You'll be expected to do lots of methods courses for us in qualitative and quantitative, with a little bit heavier emphasis on quantitative, I think, coming out of the psychology stream. So you would probably do your quant training through the psych department. But there's lots of good overlap. And I think also, and perhaps Dr. Thompson can speak more to this, that social psychology is a real strength of the psychology department at St. Thomas University. And there's lots of cross-fertilization. There are faculty members in that department that I work really closely with on my own work on aging, for example. So Dr. Thompson.
Yeah, I would just echo what Dr. Elaine has already said. It is a pretty common double major between psychology and sociology. And even if you don't end up majoring in both, students have said taking courses in the other discipline while they're majoring in one has helped them get a more sort of holistic picture. Some people sort of think about psychology as, I mean, we can think about it as dealing primarily with the individual and how the individual interacts with others in group dynamic situations. But from a sociological perspective, you look sort of zoom out a little bit more and look at structural aspects of society and how we operate within those. So it kind of gives you a nice, well-rounded perspective to take courses in both areas.
Yeah, and I also would just add that, like, I echo what both of you have mentioned. And also a lot of our courses at STU will give you a well-rounded perspective on different factors. So by taking different courses from different disciplines, you actually be able to look at maybe one world issue from different perspectives, which at the end of the day, when you graduate, you're gonna have a well-rounded experience, which is very beneficial in our world. But my next question is for Dr. Bateman. So in terms of the Lower Power and Society, program, someone is just wondering if they're required to take this course if they're considering law school after the undergraduate.
No, not required at all. The subject matter of the Law, Politics, and Society program fits very nicely with somebody's interest in the law, and we have courses that deal with matters of constitutional law, criminal law, the criminal justice system. So there's a real connection there. But law school admission is about one's overall GPA and one's performance on the LSAT exam, and often a demonstration of one's activities in the community. So what you take is not as important for admission to law school as how well you do at whatever you take.
Awesome, thank you so much. My next question is for Dr. Narayan. So there's a student wondering, I guess, in terms of like the political science program, are there any experiential learning opportunities that they would be available to them?
Well, in international relations specifically, I guess we do count the Model UN course that I mentioned as an experiential learning experience. And so those credits are present there. Beyond that, we don't have anything formally set up. In the past, I've had, when I've had research money, I've had research assistants who have worked with me in gathering information on various kinds of topics of interest to me on my particular projects. But I think that's about the extent of it, unless Dr. Bateman can remember any other experiential learning devices we have.
Yeah, a couple of things occurred to me. About a year and a half ago, I created a one-time course which involves students doing 10 hours per week at the government of New Brunswick. And I was able to assign each student to a department or to the Executive Council office in the provincial government. And those students were under the supervision of an assistant deputy minister and did all kinds of work that a public servant would do, some research work, jurisdictional scans, memos to standing committees, those sorts of things. They got credit for it. They got an excellent experience, practical experience, and the provincial government likes it because the provincial government wants to recruit people into the public service. There's a very significant generational change going on in this province and others. So I may run that course again because it worked quite well the last time I did it. The other thing is that I was able, after years of effort, to get into place the New Brunswick Legislative Internship Program, which is a provincial thing, and all the universities participate. 2 students are selected each year to work at the legislature for members of the assembly. And they do this during their school year. They get academic credit, they get a stipend, and they spend 20 hours per week doing work for MLAs. It's a competitive admission, but 2 students have been successful in the recent past. And so that's another opportunity that a student can consider sort of going through the political science program.
Sorry, Dr. Bateman, while I have you, we have a follow-up on that. So what year could they possibly take this internship?
Yeah, the legislative internship is third or fourth year students, and more than likely a fourth year student. Mhm.
Okay, awesome. Thank you. For our next question is for Dr. Thompson. So a student is wondering if they have any research or any experiments opportunities in the psychology program.
Yeah, absolutely. So in our first year psychology courses, we encourage students to participate in an experiment as a research participant, just to get the experience of seeing what it's like. You won't necessarily know what your experiment is testing exactly, but you might come in, you might answer survey questions, or you might do a multitasking experiment if you come into my lab. And then later on, particularly if you do honors, you'll design your own research project under the supervision of a faculty member, and you can conduct research, whether it's experimental or not, through the honors program. There are also opportunities to do independent study projects that can be research-based, and we often hire students to work in our labs as research assistants. So for example, I have had a couple of students recently working on research project with me where we ask people about their multitasking behavior in everyday life, and look at how that relates to how well they're actually able to juggle multiple cognitive tasks on a computer at the same time. So there's research opportunities throughout your sort of 4 years, but culminating in a potential fourth year honors research project.
Perfect. Yeah, I remember helping a student do their honors by doing their experiments that they were doing. They were pretty fun. So the next question we have is for Dr. Gupta. So a student is wondering if if there's an option to take business in economics. I think you had mentioned it a little bit earlier, but we're wondering if you could elaborate on that.
With economics major, you can take a minor in business courses, in business. So you will be doing 18 credit hours of business courses along with majoring in economics. We call it economics, major in economics with business option. We have quite a few courses at St. Thomas, but some specialty courses, if you're interested, we allow the students to take those courses at UNB. And many students take those, business options, and later on, a large part of them want to go and do an MBA and so on, and that helps them. So there is a full potential to do the major in economics with business option.
Yeah, awesome. And then also just to follow up as well, so with economics, are there any internships or research opportunities throughout their degree? And in addition, the student is wondering what career options they have with the economics degree.
Economics, there are some courses that have experiential learning component to them. There are about 5-6 courses in economics department which allow that experiential learning certificate. We do have a kind of a internship program. There's a 4th year course where we place the students in the government or business, and they get 6 credit hours. But it's not offered every year, but whenever there is an opportunity, we do offer that course. And in general, what economics is, it develops your critical thinking and problem solving skills. And that are so required in any arena of life that you can do anything you want. However, in terms of the job opportunities, economics majors, they can further specialize and become researchers, work in the research institutions, as research officers or work in the government as policymakers or work in the businesses as executives or policymakers, all kinds of businesses, hire economists or bank financial institutions. So there are, in every area, there are some opportunities for economists. So in general, economists are well placed after their economics degree in terms of their career.
Awesome. So my next question is for Dr. Harvey. So you mentioned that the program is very much interdisciplinary in terms of like students are able to take courses from other fields and disciplines. So I guess for someone wondering what, a degree, at the end of their degree, what kind of jobs they'll be getting, what would you say are most common career paths that students that you've seen end up going to?
Yeah, pretty mixed bag. So some students go into environmental law. Some students are teachers. They go into teaching after. We've have graduates who go to work on the staff of environmental organizations. A lot of people do communications and end up working in environmental groups. We have placed graduates in legislative offices, particularly in the caucus offices of the New Brunswick legislature, doing communications and research. Often they move into those positions after doing an internship, which is also possible for Environment and Society students. We have one graduate as a researcher in the office of the Federal Commissioner for Sustainable Development, and that's in the office of the Auditor General on Parliament Hill. So that's a pretty interesting position. We have a graduate who is working in the Climate Change Secretariat at the New Brunswick Department of Environment, working on community adaptation plans for climate change. And then another graduate actually worked for the city of Fredericton in their sustainability office. So lots of different places for people to go depending on their interest. And I'll just mention once again, our new program that's going to be developed over the next year, and there will be courses available in the following year in the Sustainable Transitions Teaching Lab. And what we're going to be able to do is offer student certificates through an organization called Eco Canada, which is Environmental Careers. Let me see, Environmental Careers Organization, Eco Canada. They will accredit us once our program is developed with the Environmental Professional in Training certificate that we'll be able to offer students. So there are lots of opportunities. I mean, the certificate will qualify graduates for positions in environmental sustainability planning and management, education and training, research and development, policy and legislation, public education, communication. So there's a whole big field, and it really depends on your interests, what direction you might want to go. I should add journalism to that as well. We have students who do double majors in environment, society, and journalism, and they become essentially environmental journalists. So it's really what your passion is, where you can take this, because as I said before, environment cuts through everything, we have to actually kind of be ready to do all kinds of different things within the context of, achieving a sustainable world.
Perfect. Yeah, I think, I echo what you said in terms of like, what students are interested in will really drive what they end up being able to take, the courses that they're really interested in. And actually, a lot of our students, I think when you ask a student what they're majoring in, you really hear a lot of different combinations that you've not thought about, which is really very much unique to St. Thomas University. So our next question is for Dr. Narayan. So someone is wondering what year could they participate in the Model United Nations program?
Yes, well, it's a 30-year course, but we sometimes do allow students who are in the second year to do it depending on their experience. For example, we have a number of students who come from Latin America, and Latin American schools are extremely involved in Model UNs from the time they're in high school. And so under those conditions, we sometimes make allowances for people in second year to participate in the third year course. We do let people do the course more than once, but if you do it a second time, you have to take it as an independent study. So normally the people in the course would be in third and fourth year, but as I said, there are some people who would do it in second year as well.
Perfect, thank you. And my next question is for Dr. Elaine. So we have a student wondering, I guess if they have a research topic that they're really interested in, and maybe potentially want to do it as an honors, how would they go about, I guess, kind of like approaching you, but also bringing this idea to you?
Well, that's exciting. People are thinking about honors already. Very good. There's a few things you need to do. You've got to keep your grades up, because to get into the honors program, you probably should have an average at about 80% or higher. And to enter into our honors program, you just write a letter to the chair in third year and attach your transcripts, and then if there's a faculty member that you're very interested in, it's often helpful to approach them before and to talk to them and see if you share that interest. And but most of our faculty are really excited to take on, all of our faculty are very excited to take on honors students. And for those students here who don't know the honors process very well, it is an opportunity for students to take on an independent project of their choosing, where they would conceptualize the project and be mentored by a faculty supervisor through the process of doing independent research and then writing a thesis. It takes a full year to do, and we've had some really wonderful theses come out of our program, from what it means to be a first generation student at university. We've had students study rural life in New Brunswick and the meetings associated with being a rural New Brunswicker. Had students look at queer representation in magazines, sports, immigration, hate speech online, and other projects. So we're very enthusiastic about our honors students. And in our last session of honors students, all of our students who applied to graduate school went on with full SSHRC scholarships. So we had a very successful year, and we were very excited about that.
Awesome. My next question is for Dr. Dallas. So we have a student wondering what, I guess, a degree in anthropology could potentially, the career part that it would lead them to.
Anthropology is basically well sought in every field, as I suggested. Like, there are obvious career paths, like you can be, of course, an academic anthropologist, you can be an archaeologist, you can work in the government, you can work in non-governmental organizations. That's a very popular career path for anthropologists. You can work in museums. But increasingly, businesses apply anthropologists, applied anthropologists who study marketing and all sorts of fields involving culture, including, you can study the culture of any field, including law, economics. So basically, in any field, you can use an anthropology degree. And as I emphasized earlier, anthropology gives you a cultural expertise that is very sought in every field, practically. Yes, basically that's it.
Yeah, thank you. So to the students joining us, I just wanted to mention, as we're nearing the end, feel free to send in your questions so that we get to them. But we did receive a question here asking when will be a time for them to declare a major and minor here at St. Thomas, and I'm happy to take this one. So you're not expected to declare your major till the end of your second year at St. Thomas. So really what that means is that the first 2 years here, you'll be able to take a bunch of these courses that are offered, and really that will give you a lot of time to sort of figure out what you want to do or what you're interested in. or maybe you might come in with an interest which might possibly change. It will give you a lot of wiggle room to then take other courses as well that you might be interested in. So you're not expected to declare your major until the end of your second year. If you know already your major, that's great. And on your application, if you indicated a certain major, that is also great. But you do have to formally declare it at the end of your second year, essentially. So my next question is for Dr. Thompson. So someone is wondering that they're thinking of going to journalism after STU. And essentially they're wondering if taking a bunch of psychology courses would be beneficial for them in their career path in the long run.
I mean, I certainly think so. While it's not required for journalism, it's certainly something that can help give you a perspective on how people tend to behave and the biases that we tend to have in our thinking. And some of your psych courses could also, focus on group dynamics, the way people interact, how conflict, can occur from that, and just relations with people with different backgrounds and different experiences. So what I'd recommend probably would be to take our intro courses. So there's 2 first-year psychology courses, and between the 2 of them, they cover all areas of psychology. And then from that, you'd get a sense of what fields would be most relevant for journalism. Off the top of my head, I think that our second-year social psych course would be particularly useful. But that first-year course, or those 2 courses that cover snippets of the whole field, will give you a sense of what interests you most and what you might want to pursue from there.
Awesome. So my next question, I'll actually give it to Dr. Bateman, because I know you mentioned grad school a couple of times, but there's essentially a student wondering, what jobs do you need aside from being a lawyer and a doctor that you need to go to grad school for?
I have 2 former students, both of them were honor students, who went on to master's programs at the University of Calgary. And then they went on to PhDs, and they are both actually now tenured professors at the University of Guelph in Ontario. And they've become collaborators with me on some research and writing projects. Another student of ours, Aaron Crandall, is now a tenured professor at Acadia University in Nova Scotia. And so an academic track remains open for very serious students who want to go to graduate school. And I, for one, think that being a professor is one of the best jobs that anybody could actually have. And so it can be quite an aspiration for a student of political science. And so anyway, I think that's the quick answer to the question. Students can go directly to a lot of jobs right out of a bachelor's degree, and you can go to law school directly out of a bachelor's degree. Some journalism students will do a master's in communications or journalism in other schools too, en route, sometimes to an academic track or to work in communications and in journalism. So lots of different options for students who want to go to graduate school after St. Thomas.
Yeah, awesome. Dr. Harvey, did you want to?
Yeah, I'll just add the two graduates that I mentioned, the 2 positions at the Climate Change Secretariat at the Department of Environment here, and also the person who worked at the city of Fredericton as a sustainability coordinator there. Both of those students actually did a master's degree before they got those jobs. And it's not to say that they needed to do that, but certainly it made them more competitive for those, and they're, sort of management positions, really. They're so if you've got a graduate degree, then you're, likely to go into a position, above another grade within a say a government department, or the city of Fredericton is really a level of government, so it just kind of boosted their competitiveness for those positions.
Dr. Thompson, you can go ahead.
I just wanted to add too that if you want to be say a licensed counseling therapist or a registered psychologist, you also need to go to graduate school for that. You can't practice psychology with a psychology undergraduate degree, so you would need graduate school to be registered or licensed.
Yeah, thank you all so much. I guess the question that I have right now is sort of like for everyone. So we'll just kind of start with Dr. Bateman all the way to Dr. Elaine. And we have a student wondering how STU differs from other institutions. I guess from your own experiences, from what you know, how does differ from institutions?
Sure. I have attended large universities as a student. I was at the University of Calgary for 2 degrees, but I was also a special student as an undergraduate at the University of Toronto for 1 year. I've been to the University of Alberta. I've taught at the U of A and at the U of C, and large classes, many of them taught by graduate students, is the major experience that a student will have at a large university. St. Thomas is very different. Classes are much smaller, 60 students maximum, and many classes have fewer students than that, which means the professors get to know their students very well. They mark all of their work, and you can really develop a good relationship with your professors. They can operate as mentors to you. You can see them informally very often, having lunch at the George Martin cafeteria and so forth. The opportunity to work on an honors thesis with a professor is great. Professors can then write very informed letters of reference for you for different activities post St. Thomas University. So anyway, for me, one of the big things is the more intimate environment in which students get to know their professors very well.
Yeah, I don't think I have anything to add. I think Dr. Bateman covered that very well, and I would say essentially the same thing. So I won't take up any more time than I need to.
I do want to say one of the things, having also studied at larger institutions, is that some of the experiences you might get at STU that you wouldn't get at some of these bigger institutions are experiences that are usually only available to graduate students. So we've heard several faculty members today talk about the fact that you might get hands-on experiences with your faculty mentors. Our department is incredibly research focused. We have research money, and we always have students working for us and doing things that at other larger institutions would only be done by graduate students. I think this is one of the huge advantages of coming to a small liberal arts university, is not just the access to professors, but real training and mentorship opportunities that wouldn't be available to students at this level at other institutions across the country. So my students work with me beginning in second year. Sometimes I work with them as long as I can, up to 3-4 years. Even as they go on to graduate school, I've maintained student researchers, and they can become faculty, they can become collaborators in research projects. In fact, I and several of my colleagues have even published with some of our students in academic papers. And we let our students really see from the inside what a research process looks like, from its conception to its execution to even its knowledge dissemination. I think this is one of the really special things about St. Thomas University.
I have a couple things that I might add, just specific to environment society. So just to follow up on what Dr. Elaine was saying, where, for example, we are running right now a research project called the Plutonium Project. We have hired 8 student researchers, and we have 5 faculty mentors working together on this kind of pretty big research project this semester that's looking at the proposals that the New Brunswick government is putting forward for building 2 new nuclear plants here. Anyway, that's a long story, but our research project is sort of saying, what are these proposals and are they good for New Brunswick? And so eight students from second to fourth year involved with this, and they participated last Friday in the Student Research and Ideas Fair, which is a wonderful opportunity for students. So just to reiterate that there's opportunities for those sorts of things across all departments. But the other thing I just wanted to say about the Environment Society program and why it's different from other universities, this is really the one of very few, and I'm not exactly sure that there are any in the Maritimes, environmental studies programs that is focused on social sciences and humanities, coming at this from a liberal arts perspective, as opposed to a science perspective or a management perspective. And I think the question, is not really what is the problem, but why? Why are we experiencing these serious environmental problems, and what are we going to do about them? And those are, very firmly, those questions are located in the kinds of programs that we do at St. Thomas. So it's a unique program from that perspective compared to other universities.
Yeah, awesome. I can go to you, Dr. Thompson.
Sure. I agree with what everyone has already said. One of the differences that I've noticed from where I taught my first course and where I did my graduate work at McMaster is at some other institutions, there's so much content to cover in psychology, for example, that as a student in those courses, you're given the content and expected to learn it. And one of the things that I learned quickly when I came to STU is that professors, especially at the third and fourth year level, were teaching differently. And they were asking their students not only just to learn this information, but to ask why, where's the knowledge coming from? And should we take this at face value? And so there's a much more active sort of learning environment in that small class size affords, where you can really not just learn to understand a whole bunch of different psych terms and diagnoses and things like that, but you can also start to question why are things the way they are, and should we be accepting the status quo, and what is the research evidence that actually supports these ideas? So a lot more active and critical thinking at a place like STU.
Perfect, thank you. And we can end with Dr. Gupta and then Dr. Dallas.
As I told you earlier, trains the students in critical thinking and problem solving. And that is a generic thing, but the students specialize in a particular knowledge about how the policies are made, how the economic policies are made, how the businesses are run. So, for example, we have had students, I think I have about 40 to 45 students just in federal governments working in Ottawa. There are some students working with New Brunswick government with like Department of Finance or Department of Economic, the other policy, tax policy branch and so on. There are several of them working with, have gone on to do accounting or business degrees, and they are working with some organizations, some like Rogers, some like Bell Canada, some like some research organizations. Some of them are working with banks, including Bank of Canada. There are 2 students working with Bank of Canada, which is the central bank of Canada. And many of them have gone to work with the banks, but particularly with an honors degree, you can go in all these areas. But if you want to go for teaching, academic profession, then you need a graduate degree, preferably a PhD degree. But with master's degree in economics, you can go anywhere in any area. Plus, the master's program in economics, if you are interested, and it's all paid for by the universities. You don't have to pay a single penny. They are all scholarships and teaching assistants available in the master's program in economics, and also in many other areas like political science and psychology and so on. So that's an advantage. For example, you may not get the similar kind of funding with other programs, but these programs do have those fundings. And you can go and work with the World Bank. There are many students who have gone to work with the World Bank and international organizations. So the whole world is open to you for two reasons. One, you have a specialized knowledge of economics. And second, you have a critical thinking and problem solving skills, which economics allows you to develop. So that's a very, plus economics at St. Thomas is a very versatile type of degree. We have so much interdisciplinary aspect within economics. We take it from political economy perspective. We take it from gender perspective. We take it from social perspective. So you develop yourself as a wholesome person. And that is what makes it very different than other institutions, larger universities. And as in any other courses, in any other discipline in St. Thomas, you get instructors talk to you, understand the problems, grade all your coursework, help you with your research. But this is not something easily available for undergraduate students at larger universities. So that's a plus point to come to St. Thomas as a small university, but at the same time, a smart university.
Thank you, Dr. Gupta. Dr. Dallas, did you want to go ahead?
Yes, I could only repeat what everybody else said about the advantages of being a small university. But in addition, the uniqueness of the anthropology program, I think, stands for the constellation of the expertise of our faculty and what kind of unique qualities they bring into the program, which makes this department different from any other anthropology department in the country. I could start with our forensic anthropology program, which is absolutely unique across the country. Professor Moira McLaughlin has been working with the police for decades and RCMP on criminal cases, and her expertise is widely recognized in the discipline. Many of us are focusing on indigenous societies, various parts of the world, Australia, Southeast Asia, South America, and North America. And so students can get a holistic view of indigenous cultures in many places. Not only indigenous societies, but specifically hunter-gatherer societies. And this gives students a very great opportunity to compare hunter-gatherer life ways all over the across these geographical areas. Again, I have to mention that we have expertise in ethnomusicology, which is a very attractive field for students. Professor Peter Toner, Dr. Peter Toner is teaching ethnomusicology, maritime music. They're going to music festivals and so forth. And finally, we have an educational anthropologist that is also a very unique field. We teach courses in gender, anthropology of gender, queer anthropology. So again, just to summarize, this is a very unique department with unique expertise of various professors. And I think this is what makes us different from any other anthropology department in the country.
Thank you so much, Dr. Dallas. And actually, thank you so much to all our professors here for joining us this evening. I think really I can speak for students and say that, this is very informative in a sense that, as they're preparing to register for courses, they might not know, what your programs look like, what they offer, and what they could potentially be once they graduate. So I think this is really helpful, and it gives them a little bit of an insight as to, what, their degree could be like when they come to St. Thomas. So thank you all very much. And I think to the students, if you ever have any questions, like once you're here at STU, I think, these lovely professors would love to hear from you. And they're very personable in terms of like, I think Dr. Bateman mentioned this, that, you'll be able to form relationships with them. And I can very much attest to that. I have, kept in contact with all my professors since graduating. I've used some of them for even like references for getting an apartment, for example. So it's very true that you stay in contact with them, and the relationships you form with them will really assist you as you go forward. But that is all for our panel tonight. And so for the humanities faculty panel, that will be happening next week on the 29th. So really same time, same place. So just go ahead and register at stu.ca/StuBound. And you'll be hearing from our humanities professors about their programs and departments as well. And then we do have a couple of other important dates coming up. So March 25th is our open house. So this Saturday, actually. So if you're local and you're able to make it, I definitely encourage you to, take this opportunity to come to campus, view campus, actually meet some more professors that you may not have met here today. We have sample courses, sample classes also being, being presented. So you'll actually get to go to a real class and see what it could potentially look like when you're a St. Thomas student. And then we have April 15th, which is the deadline to apply to live in residence and be guaranteed a room, as well as, very much on April 18th, you'll be able to register for your first year course registrations, but more information will be following on that. So do not stress yourself too much. We will take you step by step in terms of like course registration, and we'll be here to help you. But yeah, with that, thank you guys so much for joining us. And I'll just put my email here, which is just muchaneta@stu.ca. If you have any questions or any follow-ups from tonight, you can definitely reach out and we'll be able to assist you. But with that, I hope you all have a good evening, and thank you all so much for joining. Bye, everyone.
Thank you, Muchaneta.
You're welcome. Bye, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye.
Good night.
You too. Bye.